This is my favorite restaurant in Philadelphia called Park. It's very French. So I did this one this week, and tonight I'm going to do, it's like a different angle completely, but so I'll show you thick palette knife for the walls and the awning, and then how I do the figures. And before that, I start that, the reason I designed it and drew it on my canvas panel because that takes a while, and I didn't want to spend my whole time doing that. I wanted to show you how I use thick paint. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. And you could show the PowerPoint. It's only like 5 slides, so it's not very long. But it's what I do when I teach online, so I thought it was kind of important stuff.
Okay. Okay.
There we go. Okay, so I use Cobra water-mixable oils and Rembrandt. They're both made by the same company, which is Royal Talons, but I've been using the water-mixable oils, I don't know, since 2009, I think, like just a really long time. And I like them because I use water to start, and then I just use thick paint. So I don't need any mediums. My studio doesn't smell bad, and it's a lot less toxic. But the good thing about them, like I have drawers of traditional paint, but I can mix them together, like to use up my old paint. Like tonight, for instance, I ran out of yellow ochre, so I'm using my Rembrandt, which is traditional oil paint. So I really like them, and they've also come out with something now that you can add to all your oil paints that make them water mixable. I haven't tried it yet, but anyway, if you're mixing them together, you should have at least 1/3. You can use up to 1/3 of traditional oil paint with the water mixables. And I really like these paints because they're very creamy, and that's what I'll be using tonight. So you can go to the next one. And then this is just how I set up my palette. And I don't know how many of you are oil painters, but it doesn't matter how you set up your palette as long as you set it up the same way all the time and you know where your paint is without having to look at it. Because I do night scenes sometimes, plein air, and I know there's been times where I really don't know the difference between red, yellow, and orange, but I know where they are. So if I keep them at the same spot, then it just makes life easier. And this, I always use a 16 by 20 inch piece of glass for my palette, but now I just built a studio, and I bought like a rolling toolbox, and the top of it is like 48 by something. So I'm going to get glass for that. So I'll have even more mixing space. But just to go through my colors real quick, primary cyan is basically cerulean, but it's a lot less money because cerulean is an expensive color. So primary cyan is really nice. It's a nice color for skies. And then I use cobalt or ultramarine. I don't usually use both. Tonight I have ultramarine on my thing. And permanent green deep is just the Cobra name for Viridian. And then Madder Lake is the Cobra name for alizarin crimson or permanent alizarin. And then I like primary magenta because it's really punchy. It's kind of like a quinacridone color. And then cadmium red light, cadmium orange, cadmium yellow deep, cadmium lemon, yellow ochre, and then titanium white and transparent oxide red. So I don't always use all of those colors. And I've also switched from the cadmiums to some of the permanent reds because they seem just as good to me. So, and a big bunch of white. So that's my palette, and you can go to the next one. And that's my palette knife. So actually it's a painting knife. A palette knife is the flat kind, but the painting knife is the one that kind of goes up like a trowel. So I actually have a painting knife. And my favorite one is made by RGN, Italy. It's Italian, it's number 30. So it's like 1.75 inches or 1.5 inches long and about 3/4 inch wide. And it sounds big, but you could just put paint on the tip of it and make it a smaller knife very easily. And then below that one on the left is like a chisel one I use sometimes, but I mostly use that number 30. So you can go to the next one. And this is a grid from dynamic symmetry. And I learned dynamic symmetry, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I didn't know I went to college for graphic design and I never learned anything about the golden section or the Fibonacci numbers or the spiral. I never learned any of that. So it was all kind of interesting. And I started laying these grids on top of like Gustav Klimt's paintings and even Van Gogh used a grid. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. So I started designing my paintings around these grids. And I mean, Michelangelo used the grid and it's been used throughout history. So I thought, well, if they used it, I should too. So tonight I'm going to show you how I used it in the painting that I'm doing. So you can go to the next one. Oh, and I have a YouTube channel, and on it I have a demonstration that I did at the Booth Museum a couple of years ago that explains it pretty thoroughly and shows examples of how other artists have used it throughout history. So is that it now for now? I'm not sure. I think that might be it. What's next?
Let's look at the next one here.
Okay.
All right.
Oh yeah, we do want to see the next one. Yeah.
Yes, the next two.
Yes, the next three maybe. Okay, so this is the photograph that I'm going to paint from. I mean, I like to paint cafes plein air, but it certainly isn't the weather for that. And they get really loose, a lot looser. But this is, I actually photoshopped the waiter in, both of the waiters, I photoshopped them in from photos I had from Paris. So it's going to be on a 16 by 16 inch linen panel. So next one. And then I put the grid on top of it. And, I didn't just put the grid on top of that photo. I moved the photo around and placed things different ways. So you can see how the waiter to the left, his arm, and he's bending straight down on that angle. And then the waiter in the middle, he's on that other angle. And some of the awnings and the shadows follow those angles. And that's kind of how I design it. I move things around to fit within. So basically the top half of that painting is really nothing. All the action's in the bottom half. So, and my brightest bright and lightest light against darkest dark is going to be the area where the waiter that's leaning front, the glowing chair, and all the white stuff on the table. That's going to be like my focal point. Okay, next one. And then I try to do value studies every time before I do a painting, just so I know, more so when I'm plein air painting than in a studio, but I just want to show you this is what I do when I plein air paint. Some of them are really rough and quick. Some of them are more detailed, but it just kind of makes me know like where on the canvas the awning should be. And I just design it this way. And I use 4x6 index cards that I get at Walmart. And they're very inexpensive. So you can throw them away if it's no good. So that little drawing is about 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Okay, next. And then this is something I call a thrust map. So basically there's a dominant vertical, that's the red line that goes up and down and right through the waiter. And then a dominant horizontal is kind of where all the action is, all the people talking and all the conversation and everything that's going on is on that horizontal, dominant horizontal. And then the dominant diagonal is kind of arbitrary, but I made up that shadow on the bottom there just because it will draw your eye up to the waiter. So I'm always thinking about drawing your eye around the painting. So that's my thought process before I start almost every painting. And then I think that's it for now. Yeah.
You want to do the underpainting?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm glad you're there because I keep forgetting. So last night, I did the underpainting, which is basically transparent oxide red and a little tiny bit of viridian or permanent green deep. And I like the linen panels. I like Centurion linen panels because I brush it on and then I can wipe out with a paper towel where the lightest lights are. So I did that last night. So it's basically dry. I think some of the thicker paint under the awning might be a little tiny bit wet, but it doesn't matter if it's wet or dry because it's very thin. And that's how I do a lot of my underpaintings. So from there, then I'm going to show you how I start painting with it. There's two different ways. Sometimes if I'm really unsure of the colors, I'll brush on the colors and then go on top of them with a knife. But tonight, just to make things a little faster, I've already mixed some of the colors on my palette, and I'm just going to start painting. Okay, so just to show you, like this is my value study. As you can see how big it is. It's not very big, but I always, if I'm outside painting, I put it on top of my easel, and here I'll just put it next to my easel, next to my painting. And then I'm going to turn this around. There we go. Okay, so there's the painting that I started. I'm just going to show you real quick. This is my easel, my palette. So it's very 16 by 20. I have a lot of thick paint already mixed. Because I teach a lot of classes and people want to paint thick and loose, but they don't put much paint on their palette. So you really have to put a lot of paint on your palette if you want to paint thick. But common sense, but people get stingy with their paint sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to start with some darks. So darks, darks I like to keep thin, because what happens if you make the darks too thick, they pick up highlights and they end up looking lighter. So for the darks, I'm going to just keep everything pretty thin and just very lightly. Sometimes I don't use this one very often, but sometimes I use like this really thick one, just because see how it makes interesting marks without like really painting anything. But I don't want it to be thick, because I'm more of an impressionist. I don't want to paint a lot of details, so I try to keep things pretty thick. And then there's this other pretty cool tool that I use sometimes. This one's called a bar body. It's just like a rubber thing, but it's good for like say if I wanted to wipe some of that away, or it gives you architectural things that are, it's obviously it's thinner, but I use that sometimes. And if I don't like it, what I love about palette knife painting, if I don't like it, I can just go over it. Okay. So then inside that, I guess you can't see the picture, but inside of here, there's just some other colors. So I'm just going to put some other color in there. But I like to not mix my paint really good so that when it goes on, it has like variations in it. Like here's some gold. There's some interesting golds in this painting that I really like. Over here on the wall. So what I have in mind is that there'll be some gold here. This chair is going to glow, and then there's some gold over here, so that the gold will kind of keep your eye going around a little bit. I like to get a lot of paint on first. Actually, I put that color at the wrong spot. This is supposed to be the gray color. So it's like a blackboard there, I guess, where they put the menu. So when I used to live in the Philadelphia area, I used to go to this restaurant because I love Paris, and this is so French that you feel like you're there. And then if I want to do like vertical lines, I can put my knife like this and drag it down. And sometimes, it doesn't work, but then you can go back, move it around. So like for the palette knife painting, it's very, what I like about it, it's very forgiving. It's not like watercolor where, if you put it down, it's there. This is kind of like, I put it down, I don't like it, well, then I'll just scrape it off. So and a lot of times I always tell my students, it's the painting and the scraping that makes it interesting. If I just did this all perfectly the first time, I think it would be a lot more boring. I'm gonna put some variations inside here. They're very subtle, but I don't want it just to be like a black hole. There's lights and different things up there. But I am going to keep that inside very thick. Now that I look at this, I think this is supposed to be darker. And if anybody has any questions, please ask, because otherwise I feel like I'm talking to myself. I was wrong. See, I did that wrong. So just to show you, that's the blackboard. Yeah, I knew something wasn't right. Okay.
I have a comment, and that is that when I pinned you, you went full screen on me.
Ah. So I wasn't full screen for you before either.
Right.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Jeff, are you able to select like spotlight for everyone on Michelle?
Yeah. I haven't done this for so long. I forgot about that. Let me see if I can find it here.
If you click on Michelle's screen and on the top right, I think.
There you go.
One thing about making a lot of mistakes is it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And what's also nice is like I finished some paintings last week that's too bright. I could either tone it down now or I can do it later with a glaze. And I don't often glaze, but it is nice to know that if you don't get the value right the first time, you can always glaze over it later. Okay, now I gotta stop fussing with this wall as I get this right. I just want to establish the darks, and I think this is too dark, but like I said, I can adjust it later. So there's different ways of using a knife, but a lot of times, I hold it very lightly, and unless I'm doing a straight, like that was, I'm pushing straight against, but a lot of times I hold it pretty light and just kind of drag it. And then when I'm going to do this later, I'm going to try to get enough paint in here that I can just show you how I do a straight line too, because those are really fun. Okay, so this is a shadow. And I do use the brush sometimes, I remember one time I was teaching a class and I got out my brush and one of my students said, "Oh, you use a brush too?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I can use whatever I want, So anyway, I do use brush and knife. Some things like obviously straight lines lend themselves better to a knife, whereas someone's face maybe doesn't lend themselves too well to using a knife. Okay, so I think I'm gonna just put a little more darks up here. Sometimes I just start painting intuitively. I'm not really sure why I do something, but it just seems like it needs something there.
Somebody just questioned what's the surface on which you're painting?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm using a Centurion linen panel. So they make oil primed ones and acrylic primed ones. So since I'm using water mixable oils, I have to use the acrylic primed one. I found out the hard way that the oil primed one, I when I first started using these paints, I used an oil primed panel, and it just started the water. Water and oil don't mix, so it started beading up a little bit, and I knew right away that something wasn't right. So yes, Centurion linen panels are very nice because they are very smooth. They're pretty smooth, not super smooth, but smooth enough that I can wipe off. Like this, when this was wet, I could just wipe it off back to its white uh, color. Okay, so I think I'm going to do a little bit of this up here and then do the awnings and then this and then start working on the people. I'm not going to, probably won't get finished tonight, but I wanted to get like a good start, which is why I didn't do all the first steps. So here, the awning is going this way, so I'm dragging my knife that way. And I like to put a little light and a little dark on so that it gets like striations in it. So it's easier to put light on top of dark than to put dark on top of light because, yeah, if you try to put dark colors on top of light colors, they get kind of chalky. So that's why I started with this dark and then I go on top of it with the light. The sun is coming obviously this way. All right, so then I'm going to do the, let's see, first of all, underneath here, there's some, yeah, and here would be a place that would be good to use the brush just to get some darker red on here. That went too far. This awning actually ends right here. There you go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put so it's a red awning, but when the sun hits it, it bleaches out the color, like so it gets more like a really pale peachy white, and it'll be a little richer color here than light and cooler and more faded out as it goes back. So first of all, I'm just going to put a lot of paint on there, and then I'll adjust it. If I just drag my knife down like that, it'll make like an edge, like a lip that actually looks like it's sticking out, kind of like that. Because I really like painting umbrellas and awnings with the really thick paint because this is kind of my thing. Like I just love, I think my love affair with cafes is that I love to go out to eat and sit outside. So then I love to paint them because it makes me feel happy. Makes me feel like I'm sitting there. I know sometimes when I used to do a lot of plein air competitions, and I'd be like standing in the hot sun, you know, really hot and tired and thirsty and hungry, and I'd be listening to all these people laughing and having a good time, and I'd be thinking, maybe I'm doing the wrong career here. But I do actually really enjoy painting outside, and I know a lot of plein air painters like to be left alone, but I kind of like talking to people. And there's always jokesters that come up, oh, would you put me in it? You know, all that kind of stuff. But I really do like painting outside. Plus, I always meet a lot of interesting people. I've painted this cafe in Philadelphia standing there many times. I even painted it one time at night with nightlight. Okay, so here I'm keeping the thick paint, and I'm going the direction of the awning and the little things underneath. But as I get closer to myself here, I'm making them a little darker. Like I could pretty much stop there. I don't have to do a whole lot more. The only thing is you can see these lines here. So this is where I have thick, kind of, here, let me show you. I like a little edge of thicker paint on the edge of my knife here. So then if I push it in at an angle, like really hard, and drag it this way, it kind of skips and jumps and lets go, but it creates that rib in the thing. So I'm not going to do them all and make it striped, but I'm going to just do a few of them. Maybe a half of one yet. There we go. So I didn't go far enough down there, so I want to finish this. Okay, so that's good enough for now. Later on, I'm gonna write on it. Actually, I could show you just how I do that now, because I'm always thinking about, like, when I write on here, my hand will get in there, so it would be good to do it now. It would also be good to, so these are two brushes that are watercolor brushes, and they're riggers or liners. I'm not exactly sure what you call them, but they're long and thin, and they're great for how I like to paint with them. So there's a couple ways that I use them. First, let me make this darker. Sometimes I use them for writing, and then later on you'll see how I use them to put like highlights on the people's heads. So, well, I guess I could show you real quickly. So let's see, that's the word. It says cafe, bar, vins. I guess it means cafe, bar, and wine. So it's you know, it's not going to be bright white. I'm going to mix some yellow or ochre in with it, just so it doesn't look too white. But what I do, and I'm not going to do the whole thing, but see how much paint there is on the tip of this? I like twirl it around in a thick pile of paint, because to paint on top of that thick paint, I need really thick paint. And I don't push, I just kind of lay it lightly on top. So if I just take this brush here and see, I'm just kind of laying it on top, so I can put not quite thick enough, but yeah, so, you know, I can't push hard. And I'm just kind of dragging it on there lightly. And I also have to get more paint, like, constantly, because it picks up the red underneath. And makes it pink. So that's how I'll do that. And I don't want it to be like perfect either, because that would be boring. This is an impressionistic painting. So I think I'll just do the one word. I can do the other words later. But see how I have to use my hand as a maul stick, so I don't want to have the whole painting done and then go back and do that, because then it would be harder. Try to make my life easier, not harder, right? And then over here, it's like a little diamond or something, and then it says bar. Okay, and then another thing I'll use the rigger for is the underneath of the awning, because it's kind of like, you know, up and down a little bit. Okay.
Nice. That's good.
All right. Now, see the top of, I wish I could show you the photo so you could see what I'm looking at. Maybe you can see it a little bit, right? So there's the photo that I'm looking at. It's very washed out. So typically when I'm painting, I'll have my iPad here on a tripod so I can see the colors better. But I've been staring at this all day, so I pretty much know what it looks like. Okay, so here it's kind of dark right underneath here. So I have thick paint on there. And once a lot of people that paint, they want to learn palette knife, but if you don't use enough paint, none of this works. Like I couldn't have made a straight line like that, like here, because there's no thick paint. It needs a thick paint underneath it to make it work. And then above here, there's like a line underneath of the cement, I guess. And I'm just going to put some of the cement wall. Just trying to show you different ways to use the knife before I get into the people. Like, see how thick that got? That's too thick. It's like distracting. I want to look at that and say, what is that? So I can get rid of it. And that's kind of why I was using the brush there.
Michelle,
Yes?
so this combination of water-based oils and oils,
Uh-huh.
how did you decide that this was a good combination? And is it a big benefit in plein air? I'm assuming it is, but
You mean to use the Cobra?
yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm an ambassador for Royal Talons, so I always learn like what they have and what they're doing, and it's been really nice to know that I can mix those paints together, because I wouldn't have known that. So I'm in on a lot of meetings where they tell us, you know, what you can do with the paint, because it's a really good paint company. And the reason I started using them was because my mother got cancer. I don't know, like in what year was that? 2010. And I started thinking, oh, you know, I'm painting in this room full of this toxic paint. Maybe I should check it out. So then I researched it and found out that this was supposed to be one of the better. In my opinion, it is the best, of course, water mixable paint, because some of them get really sticky. I've used another brand first, and it was like, oh my God, I couldn't. It took like a year to dry, And this paint dries same amount of time as traditional oil paint does. It's not any faster, it's not any slower, it's just kind of the same. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure if I did.
Oh, yeah. Why you turn, from just the oils to it sounds like there's like 1/3 to 2/3
Oh,
oil.
yes, yes. They said you can use up to 1/3. So like if I run out of white paint, I can just use Rembrandt. I mean, I used to do a lot of plein air events, so seems like I never won the money, but I always won paint. So I have drawers and drawers of traditional paint, but I use it. Like I'm using a Michael Harding orange tonight because I ran out of orange. So it's nice to know that I can do that.
And you still use a medium?
I don't typically use a medium just because I want to paint thick. But I mean, you can use any medium with, this is, I mean, the Cobra is oil paint. It's oil paint. The only difference is that they put a soy emulsifier in it. Like if you use egg tempera, years ago they used egg as the emulsifier. Oil paint, they use linseed oil. Here they put some kind of soy oil in it, so it mixes with water. Like if you make a salad, you use soy or to make dressings, you use soy oil. Well, this is kind of the same thing, except it's paint. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think that since it's water mixable, it dries like acrylics, but it's not acrylics, it's oil paint, and it dries just like oil paint. I wish it dried faster sometimes, but I'm gonna fill this up and this up, and I could try to get some paint on there. I like using this big knife, but it doesn't always work the way I want it to. Yeah. Like right now.
Michelle, you mentioned you have a quick dry medium.
Oh, well, on the slide, they do make a quick dry medium, but I don't think it dries very quick. So I don't use it. And the problem with using a medium is it makes the paint thin, and then I can't paint thick. So they make a quick dry medium, but I honestly don't use it. I think if I wasn't a palette knife painter, I would try it. But you know what I mean? You know how medium makes things thinner. So
So that's a Royal Talons quick dry medium.
yes, well, Cobra makes a quick dry medium too. I mean, they all do. The only one that I've actually found that I really like is there's this stuff called Oleo Pasto, and I think it's made by Winsor Newton. Not even sure. So sometimes I get a tube of that and mix it in with my white paint, and it makes it dry overnight. So if I'm like when I went to Europe, I used that. So like I don't want this to get too perfect, so I'll just kind of mess it up a little bit. And if I decide later I want it more perfect, I can make it more perfect. Because it's not about that. That's just trying to fill up the space. Okay, so now I'm going to put some paint here, and then I'm going to start on the people. It is really nice to have the paint mixed up before you paint, and I always want to do that, but I never mix enough paint up. But because I knew I was doing a
Yeah.
demo tonight, I did that. Because a lot of times it's mixing the paint takes longer than painting it.
Yes. Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes.
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 Okay. So then, yeah, there's really interesting shadows on here that I really like. This is kind of what drew me to this scene. And so here, I love this in the painting. She's dark and it's going to be light behind her. It's going to be dark behind her and it's light. So I love that interchanging of different lights and darks and light against each other. So that was one of the things I really liked about this photo. And like, that's a mistake, but it's not a bad one. Like sometimes those mistakes are, because that's like a brick wall. So, it's kind of cool that it's not perfect there. And if I ever want to, just get around that person without using a knife, I'll do that. I'm really proud of myself that I mixed up enough paint. The worst thing is, you mix up the perfect color and then you run out of it, right? I'm sure everybody's done that.
Michelle, are you using the yellow ochre and white?
For this color,
Yes. Yes.
I used yellow ochre. I used a Rembrandt color for that because I ran out of yellow ochre, and that was yellow ochre light. Then I mixed a little bit of blue in it because it was getting too bright because I didn't want it to be too bright. But yeah, basically that's what it was, and I mixed some other colors with it.
Okay.
So now that I have this on here, I like to just kind of mess it up a little bit too, and I put some yellow on top of that just to, I don't know, give it some variety. Like this here is really boring. It's all the same, so I have to kind of do something and just, whoa, not that. But I guess it would be cooler up there. I'm not really sure how that would be, but there's like a door here. So anyway, I'm fussing too much on unimportant stuff. And another thing I like to do is like, so I have thick paint here and thick paint here. Sometimes it's nice to just like kind of go back and forth and make it not such a hard edge. Okay, now I think I'll just put some paint here and then I can start working with people. So this is kind of like it's in the shadow, but it's a yellow wall. I mixed something up, but I have no idea if it's going to be good enough. It's not too bad. And a lot of times when I'm doing something like that too, I could just use like a big brush because this is it's not the important part of the painting. This is a really cool brush. This is what I use for my underpainting. It's called a Blick Mega brush, and it's a number 30. And I don't know if it's made for watercolors or oils, but I really like it. It's nylon. It's a flat brush. And I also think about like, I'm drawing the paint horizontally because I'm thinking that it will bring your eye towards the waiter a little bit because he is our focal point. There's going to be all kinds of other things there are all kinds of other things over here, but I don't want to get too detailed. But if I can just indicate, that there's something there. And also, it's like this really beautiful wood panel here. If you ever go to Philadelphia, you have to go to Park Restaurant because it is just, you feel like you're in France, in Paris when you go there because it's just so French. Okay, so there's like a menu here, but it's white, but in the shadow it wouldn't be white. So I just mixed up a bunch of grays here. And that's too gray. So I'll put more white in it. So I want it to look like, it's a white thing in the shadow. So for when I do something like that, then this is what I was talking about earlier. If this is a big knife and I only want the thing to be that big. So if I take a paper towel and wipe off, the bottom of it, now my knife is only that big. So then when I lay this down, it'll only be the size that I wanted it to be.
Nice.
Same thing here. Maybe there's another sign down there. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to just start working on the people. So one thing I always do first, which is just what I do. I'm not sure why, but I take orange, and I don't actually have orange tonight, but I mix a little bit of transparent oxide red, and I have to think about, like, most of their faces are in the shade. So I'll just put, like, with a brush, the color that I think I want their faces to be. And in some faces, that might be the only paint that gets there. And some of them I might go over with a knife. But it's very tricky to, I'll put their hands in too, where I think they are. And this guy's looking down. She's looking at her. And I always make up little stories too about what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Gossiping stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh, did you hear what she said? Oh, wow. Okay. And I want to show you, this is a painting that I just finished. And if you look at their faces, you can see that they don't have features, I don't really want them to have features. I want them to just be anonymous people. I remember years ago, I used to do outdoor art shows, and it was all cafes, and this little boy came up with his dad, and he goes, "Mommy, her people don't have faces." And I always remember that because they don't. He was right. But, if it's a really big painting, like there's one over there where I just put like an indication of where their eye sockets are and maybe the shadow of their lip, but I don't really like to get too many details in there. And then sometimes I also put in like his vest with dark, because like I said, I don't want the darks to be too thick. And I have this thing for waiters. I don't know. I think maybe in a previous life I was married to one or something. I just love painting waiters with their vests and their aprons on.
Hi, Michelle. This is Noreen again.
Hi.
Hi. So you mentioned how you photoshopped a couple of those waiters in there, and if you don't have Photoshop, and what's a good alternative? And that's an art into itself, even knowing what little people to add. Even
Yeah.
where.
Yeah, I know. I used to be a graphic designer, so I do have that advantage that I can Photoshop stuff. But I mean, you could print them out and cut them apart. You know, I remember years ago, an artist I had gone seen a demo, and he had like 15 photographs, like all cut out and pasted together for his design. And, you know, it worked. You know, Photoshop is a lot easier, but yeah. Or just, you know, you could do it more detailed sketch too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these guys were actually from Paris, and but I thought appropriate. It's a French restaurant. Okay, so after I put so I mixed up some like a bluish purple because the shadow of their crisp white shirts would not be, well, for me it's purple. You know, it could be, actually could be a little bit reddish. Because, you know, did you ever go out to eat with someone and you're sitting under a red umbrella and you all look so healthy because your skin is like glowing? Well, that's kind of, he could have more red in his shirt because it's the sun coming through and making you glow. So I'm going to make it a little reddish. So using a knife helps me be more impressionistic because I don't have a lot of control here. So it's actually better to just do it all with a knife and just get most of what I want to get, and then go over it with my rigger knife. So, you know, so if I put the thick paint under for his shirt, and then I have a little bit of dark there, and if I carefully go like that, oh, that's a skinny little tie. It needs a thicker tie than that. Sometimes I have to do things 10 times till I get it right, but it's a little better.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I jumped the gun a little bit putting this guy's face in because normally I put their hair in. So if I put the dark for his hair and then I go back and put his face on top of it, I can use the knife. Now he's really pink, but like I said, he's under the awning, so I guess that's okay. I'm just going to roughly put in everything here that I want to put in and then go back and show you how I use the rigger. But one thing that's really important on this painting for me personally is that glowing chair. I love those French chairs. So I want to put that in there so I don't forget about it. So I'm mixing some cadmium yellow deep and cadmium light and some white. And I want to make that pretty thick. So it's the chair right here. And that's a little too light. I'll just keep going over it until I like it. Yeah, that's the glow right there. I like that glow. And I could have, before I'd done that, just maybe put the top. And here I'm just using straight transparent oxide red. You see how that's like glowing already?
Yep.
And I didn't get any paint down there, I don't think. So, you know, obviously that might be too big, but I can always go over it. It's a lot of back and forth and back and forth, back and forth till I like it. And his hair back here. Or maybe he doesn't have any hair. I don't know. Maybe just a little bit. And I like to, like, I think she's going to have a red top. Hers might be blue. In the picture, they're all just really dark, but so this is kind of this primary magenta. But then if I add some white to it, this is a really punchy color here. I can put it on the edges where the sunlight is hitting her. I mean, so I just kind of, if I'm out plein air painting, I just kind of look around and see, what people are wearing that's interesting in different colors. Like in general, most people dress pretty boring, but yeah. So he's going to be a redhead. Just going to put some clothing on. I don't know how much time I have. I don't have a clock in my new studio, so Jeff, you'll have to let me know how much time I have left.
Well, it's about 8:15 right now, so our time.
So how long do you go to usually?
I don't know, actually, the meeting technically is till 9, but it's up to you how much you want to do and
Oh, okay.
go.
Okay.
So another 15 to 20 or 30 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Yep, I'll have to paint fast. That's all. So I'm going to show you how like a big mess can start looking like something when you add the highlights. So I'm just going to quickly give them clothing. Anybody else have any questions? She's a blonde, right? I don't know if any of you are actually palette knife painters. Oops.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you prefer painting plein air or in your studio?
That's a good question. I think that I prefer painting plein air just because of the excitement about it all, but it's also, I know that it's a lot more work. Like tomorrow, there's a plein air group in Santa Fe that are going out at 1 o'clock to paint. And I'm like, oh, I really would like to go, but I got to get new tires on my car. There's always an excuse. But I think that I get really excited when I'm plein air painting, more so than, in my studio. But yeah, I don't know if I know the answer to that one. I do like plein air. And I used to do competitions like all the time. And then I decided that they were just too stressful because I'm getting too old. But then I realized this summer when I did one in Telluride and I made really good money, and I was like, oh, well, maybe I should start doing this. Because you get out and you paint like, 3 paintings in a day. I don't do that in my studio. Never.
Yeah.
So that's what's really cool about it. And the camaraderie and all that is special too. So here for the chair, I'm going to just even that out a little bit. just as an example, like I could either use my knife for this part of the chair, which works really well, or I could use a brush, but since that works so well, I think I'll just keep using the knife. So because it's thick paint and I'm dragging it across it, it works, but if it wasn't thick, it wouldn't work so well. And now the seed of it is yellow, but it's not as bright because it's not glowing. It's not hit by the sun. And
I have another question about plein air.
Yeah.
Would you actually be using the same like colors and size of the painting and all that if you were outside, or do you use it smaller? Or
Both. I mean, I think the most comfortable size I use plein air is 12 by 16 or 9 by 12. Now, the biggest, I went to Ghost Ranch for a weekend one time and I took out a, what was it, 24 by 36-inch canvas. And I just like, I had it in my mind. I was painting this big canvas and I did it and I really liked it. And, but it's, you know, it's a struggle. So when I paint bigger plein air, they do tend to be wilder and looser, which I like, but it's harder. So I would say my comfortable ones, 9 by 12 or 12 by 16. Like if I go out tomorrow, or 12 by 12, I like 12 by 12. But you know, it's winter here too, and I wouldn't last more than an hour and a half probably. I think that there's something really special about plein air painting that I think that you actually somehow, I don't know how, absorb the energy of where you are into your painting. And I don't know how that happens, but I think it does. And it's what's really exciting about it. Okay, one of the things I was going to do was show you how I put on, this is like the thing that holds the awning up. So I don't want to make it too black, but I want to make it a little reddish because it's, you know, the awning is probably reflecting on it. So for that, something like that, I'll take my knife. That's pretty much paint on it and kind of study where that goes exactly. And just like that. So push in, take a deep breath and pray that it works, and drag it up to there. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Not great, but so like it got a little thick. Well, I don't think it did get too thick actually. I think it just needs another run. I'm pushing really hard there. Where that works. Then there's a shadow then it goes across here, but I think that would be better to add later, probably when it's dry, or I could try it now, but it's like the shadow of that. But what I like about it is it brings your eye down here to where all this action is. Okay, so the tabletops have a lot of glassware and they're kind of sparkling in the sun. So I have pretty thick paint, and this tabletop is right there. And then there's one here. And there's one over here. I'll go back over there and put the chairs around them then, and then maybe her hands are there. So I'm gonna, actually, if you go to my Instagram page, you can see really fast of how I did the underpainting. And then probably tomorrow when I finish this, I'll post it. And let's see. Okay, so what else did I want to do? He doesn't have a full face there. Just gonna put some darks underneath their tables just to break up that. I put some paint in there, and then I'm going to show you how I do the highlights on them and the chairs. It doesn't look so good yet, but all right. And then with some white also, I can put like their little cups of tea, or maybe they're drinking wine. Not sure. I think this guy's has gonna have wine. Red wine. They're celebrating. And I also, a lot of times I don't know if it's a guy or a girl that I'm painting until I get to the end, because I like to, rather than like study that photograph too much, I kind of like to let the paint do its thing. And that happens more in street scenes. Like I'll be doing some figures and it's like, oh, that's going to be a woman because it looks more like a woman than a man. And I just kind of go with the flow. Okay, so this is where the magic starts.
Like the car.
Okay. See how I twisted the paintbrush in, so there's like a big hunk of paint there. So then if I, let's see, I'll start with this guy. The sun, I'm looking at where the sun's hitting him. Might hit the tip of his nose. Oops, whoa. Pinocchio, I didn't plan that, but I'll go back and fix it. He has a Pinocchio nose. There, that's better. Okay, so let's see. This woman here really looks a mess, so I'm gonna give her some hair. Sometimes even if it's not, like I don't even have to go exactly where the paint is. I just have to make it up so it looks good. Like that could be her hair. And then this woman over here, she has a bun. She has a bun on her head. And those are her hands. Oops. And this person. So the paint is really thick and it's just kind of laying on the top there. If the painting was a lot bigger, I would do some of these highlights with a knife, but One other thing, I wanted to kind of look like he has glasses on the tray, but there's too much white. Okay, so now I can put the glasses on his tray. Like, actually, his tray is leaning down, so it might fall off. But and then there's nobody at this table yet, but maybe they left. So, but there's still glasses on it because this is the part that is kind of more the focal point where the light is, and then the highlight of the chair. So it's starting to come together now. So as far as the chairs, I could use my other rigger, and I think I have to. So in the photograph, you can see here how the sunlight is shining a little bit between the chairs, and I would put in the. I know we're probably running out of time, but I would kind of put in the shadow on the ground underneath here, and maybe make it a purplish reddish color.
Yeah.
And then I'll put the light coming in around it and the chairs. And this is all going to be a shadow here too. Sometimes it's good just to scrape a lot of the different colors on your palette and put them down and see what they look like. Actually, I like that color. It has a little of the red in it, some of the purple. Okay, so I'm going to put some of the sunlight behind it and then put the legs and the tables. Probably my least favorite thing to paint is foregrounds. Not sure why, but they're always a trouble. So that's some of the light shining behind there. Kind of hard to imagine, but okay. So now I'm just going to put in some of the chairs. I'm going to use transparent oxide red mixed with some yellow, cadmium yellow deep. Or it's going to be light, where the sun hits it. But then they'll be dark where the realize that guy's like sitting in the air.
No.
And I don't really have the legs lined up right. Yeah, I think maybe these legs are gonna need some work here. Oh, he needs legs. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
that's
was
it.
kind of floating before. Yeah, same as her. She doesn't have any legs either. All right, let's see who else. Who else is missing legs? Let's see. Guess can't see her. Sometimes it's nice too. I just like smeared some red down there, and I really like that.
I
Could
like
be
it.
anything. Yeah. So it's, the more I go and the more I paint, the looser I'll get, and this will come together. Like this here looks terrible right there, so I'm gonna just get rid of it. Make any sense? I wasn't really looking at the chairs when I did that. I was just kind of poking in paint, which was a mistake. So try again. I think maybe this chair, because I'm so in love with it, I think I made it too big. These are things that I'll look at tomorrow and adjust. And what's nice about painting thick is that I can still move all this paint around for a couple days yet. Just kind of looking around at what really needs help. And I haven't stepped back at all, like how you're supposed to do that. I haven't done that at all. So this will need some work, but I think that I have a good start here. And sometimes it doesn't take a lot to like fix something. It just takes a lot of looking at it, like this afternoon I had a snowy scene I did last year, and I just hung in my bathroom all year, and I was like, you know what? I just don't like this painting. So all I did was like maybe a half an hour's worth of work on it, and now I like it. Sometimes you just have to look at it.
I agree.
I remember I had a painting in my house. I'm not even exaggerating. It's 5 years. And I even moved out here, and I moved it from my old dining room to my new dining room. And I kept staring at it. I was like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. And then finally 5 years later, I finished it. What is that? All right. Well, I think that you get the idea. I think there's a lot of things I need to do here, but that's pretty much how I paint. Just going to add one more highlight here. I realize this woman here doesn't really have a head. Now, sometimes if I'm doing a street scene and I have a lot of people, I'll put all those highlights on, and I'll show you this one. There's a lot of thick paint on here, and then I take like a tissue and wisp it sideways, and it makes it look like the people are moving. So I wouldn't do that in the restaurant, but I would do that in a street scene. I guess, is my time up? I don't know. I would
Yeah,
put
we should probably start wrapping it up.
okay. Yeah, so anyway, that's kind of like here it's not as important. But one thing I want to just say also is, okay, so if this is the shadow and it's cool back here as it goes farther away, it would get warmer as it comes closer. So I would add more like yellow and red to it as the shadow got closer. And I don't want to make it so straight. So I think there is a curve here. So the shadow would go there and then up. At least to break it up a little bit. And then another thing that I always like to do is have a dark corner so I can scratch my signature in there without having to paint it with a paintbrush. Yeah. So anyway, okay, well then you kind of get the idea how I paint, and I know I'm gonna spend tomorrow finishing this because I want to finish it while it's still wet. So
Can you send me the a photo of the finished work then when you're done with it?
oh yeah, definitely.
And
Yeah.
I'll use that for the little icon for this demonstration now on YouTube, but we'll also send it out to the members. We'll see the finished work.
Okay, yeah, because I'm looking at, there's a cool light up here. I need to fix that shadow and add a little more details. Not a ton, but like some details over here, and just like refine it basically. I mean, yeah. So it's I would say it's 90% finished. It's just the final details is what's gonna finish it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we had a couple of slides that you want to talk about as far as I think you have some books you want to talk about. And,
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you want to show that, that's just a couple things like my upcoming classes and stuff.
yeah. Okay. Hang on here a second.
I'd love to.
A question.
Yes.
Oh,
You have your canvas. It looks like it's on a board. How did
Oh,
you?
yes. That's a good question. Okay, so what I do is I learned this from a student when I was teaching because like a lot of times your easel gets in the way and you can't like paint. Here I can paint all around. So I take painter's tape and lay it on the back of the panel facing front, the sticky part facing front. And then here I have some white painter's tape on top of it. So I just put one on the top and one on the bottom, and then my panel is like floating on. This is just a big thick piece of gator board, but it's really, really nice so I can, not worry about getting like this would be in the way or this would be in the way. And I do that a lot now when I'm doing smaller paintings. This is just so much easier. Does that make sense? Do you understand that?
I see the idea. I don't quite get the tape.
The tape is two-sided tape.
No, it's not two-sided tape.
No.
It's just that, okay, so this is like it's a thick piece of duct tape, and I put it on the back so it sticks to the back of the canvas, and it's sticky here. And then I put this on top of, I put a big piece of tape on top of it. So it's two pieces of tape, one on the back and then one on the front. And then it just floats up here. So this is tape on top of another piece of tape that's underneath there. But it's really nice way it's a really nice way to work, especially when I'm doing demos, because I can just go out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that seems
You're
more
welcome.
sturdy than using double-faced tape, so I like that idea.
Yeah, this is actually, I think that it's either duct tape or white painter's tape.
Mhm.
And then it's, both sides. And you could do all four sides, but it's strong enough for two. And I've never had one fall off. So, I used to use blue painter's tape, but then the blue was like distracting paint around it. But
Well, Michelle, I've always have loved palette knife, but you're so refined and it's just beautiful. And I've got a whole new view of palette knife now. Before I was just so thick and I really didn't know how to use it. Now I can, it's a beautiful demonstration. Thank you.
well, thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of people that take my class, they think they gotta just like throw the paint really crazy and wild. And this
No,
is
you don't. Right.
no, and I'm very I used to be super tight painter, so the knife really helped me loosen up because you just don't have as much control.
Correct.
But
Correct.
I think it's helped my painting too because it made it looser. So I'm really happy with the awning. I think that turned out good, but a lot of this still needs some work. So
Yes, it's
stay
beautiful.
tuned. Well, thank you.
Better?
Yeah, now we can
Yeah.
see it. Yeah. Well, I just want to do some bragging at the end. So if you go to my YouTube channel, I did a demonstration for International Artist Magazine, and that was the June, July issue. But there's also a video of me doing some of the stuff at this painting right here. That is a French cafe in Paris. So that's something. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can see the demo for that. And then this is my workshop coming up. If anybody wants to go to Florida, I'm going to be at Jupiter, Florida, the beginning of February, and then Bonita Springs, the middle of February, and then Key West towards the end of February, and then in Santa Fe in April, and at the Booth Museum in Georgia in October, and Santa Fe right here in my studio next September. I didn't pick those dates, but I think it's going to be the weekend of the 14th, which is my birthday, but I thought, well, it's the only weekend that works. So, and then I have some online recorded classes as well on my website. And I have one on dynamic symmetry that explains it a little bit more. And I think that's all I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do have some videos actually. There's one on palette knife cityscape. That's on Paint Tube, and then there's one on Cuba, and then there's this one of people at a cafe. So that's all my promotions. And there's also a book. It's more geared towards photographers, but it's called Canon of Design: Mastering Artistic Composition. That is kind of helpful in explaining the grids a little bit. And that's all I got. And then a couple things I do at the end, like I'm looking at it right now. It's like, just like mess it up a little bit, like some of it's a little too rigid, so I'm gonna mess it up while it's still wet.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and stay warm up there.